Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 574. This is a interesting game in the Traxler or Wilkes-Barre variation of the two knights defense. So let's put this on the board. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, normal moves, and now bishop to C4, the second choice here, going into the Italian game, and knight F6, also the second choice, but respectable way to play the two knights defense. And now I go with knight G5, once again the second choice here, trying to set up the fried liver attack with this quick strike on F7 there. And D5 is the main way to play it, and this is sort of one of the main lines of the two knights defense, and interesting way to play. And black basically sacrifices a pawn here but gets good play for it. But the second choice here, pretty rare in this database, is the interesting move bishop c5. So this variation has two different names. It's called the Traxler variation, primarily in Europe, and it was originally played by Karol Traxler, who was a Czech player and also a problemist, so a composer of chess problems. And then in the United States, there's a group of Pennsylvania amateur players who analyzed this variation sometime later and published their analysis, and they named the variation after their hometown of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So it carries two names, and in the United States and then also in the United Kingdom, it's primarily known as Wilkes-Barre, whereas elsewhere it's known as the Traxler variation. Anyway, pretty interesting way to play. If you look at it, from a technical point of view, white is better here, although it's not quite as good as the chess engine makes it out at first. If you follow these lines, knight takes f7 in particular is the first choice of the engine, which is met by bishop takes f2 check. And if you follow that line down, you'll actually see that white's advantage shrinks after a while. So this is a bit of an exaggerated picture. Basically, black gets a lot of play. And in fact, you don't take the bishop back. You play king f1 and try and use that bishop as a shield along the f-file. I mean, one problem is that although you're picking up a pawn here, you're opening the f-file and your development is a little lagging. Your king side is kind of been vacated by the pieces. The pieces that would normally be over here defending the king have gone on an adventure. So anyway, bishop takes f7 is a little bit of a safer way to play, forcing the king to move. And king e7 is the normal move here, which was played in the game. And basically the idea is to keep this f-file free so that the queen or the rook can come over there and cause trouble. And then I play the move bishop d5, which is a normal move here. Now there is one point to watch out for, which is if black plays king f8 instead, then bishop d5 is no longer a playable move because knight takes d5 exposes an attack by the queen on the knight, and black is doing well there. So in this case, when the king goes to f8, you'd have to drop the bishop all the way back to b3, which is an alternative in the other line as well. But the little more active post, d5, is better after king e7, so bishop d5 here. And this introduces the option of just trading off this knight at some critical point if you need to reduce the material. So he played d6. That's the move I hadn't seen before. Rook f8 is the main continuation, and then white castles and play continues. And it's still crazy. It's not like it's quiet at that point. And you'll see that white has a significant edge here according to the chess engine, but it's a difficult position to play. The engine can give you some sort of objective viewpoint about the position, but it can't tell you whether the resulting position is easy to play or not. So anyway, d6 is an interesting move, and my move, knight f7, is a blunder. So the move here is c3, which is a good move in many of these cases. I play it a little bit later. Basically, it keeps the second knight from joining in to the attack by hopping into d4, or even to b4 in some cases, looking at the c7 square, but d4 also looks onto key squares on the king side. So c3 is a good move here. The way I played, I was thinking maybe it's good to grab material and give some back, but actually black is winning after this. In fact, he had a clear win at one point in the game. So he starts with queen f8, which is the correct move. We're just out of the opening book at this point. So, and then I grab the rook in the corner, and this loses. And once again, it's this bishop f2 check tactic. If I take, well, let's go ahead and play this out. So if he had played the best moves here, I would be in big trouble. So bishop f2 check. And suppose I take the bishop, just grabbing material. I've now got a rook and a piece. So even if he wins a queen here, that I would be okay. But there's no, it's not just winning a queen here. This is mate in 5. So it shows you how dangerous this can be. Let's take a look at this checkmate here. Knight takes e4 check. King e3. So king, if the king goes back, then queen f2 is checkmate directly. So the toughest defense is to wander over this way. Queen f2 check. King d3. It's interesting, yeah, just these two pieces. But, well, there is this lurking knight over here, too. 3 pieces ready to jump into the attack. Knight to c5 check. Yeah, the king is being chased all over. The knight's covering this square, pawn's covering that square. The king can go to c4 or c3. Let's see, c4, he lasts slightly longer. So queen d4 check drives the king all the way to b5, and queen a4 is mate. So anyway, you can't take the bishop, which is true of many of these sacrifice lines. Bishop takes f2. So you put the king here underneath the bishop. And then how's the continuation from here? Bishop to g4. Bringing the other bishop in, hitting the queen. Ah, that's good. The queen has no squares. And there's no piece here to interpose. So this is going to win some material. Queen takes g4, knight takes g4, and now the queen is opened up onto the attack on the king. And I think from here you can see black is in pretty good shape. Let's see, even is probably even in material as well. Yeah, it's hard to count. Let's see, he's got a queen, a rook, and 3 pieces. I have 2 rooks and 4 pieces, so I'm basically down the exchange, and black has still got a tremendous attack. So anyway, let's see. So knight takes h8 was a big mistake, and he played the second best move here, so he wasn't missing all the ideas. He's finding some good ideas here. Knight takes d5 check, still keeping an advantage to black. Oh, so instead of knight f7, did I say what I should have played there? Yeah, I should have played the c3 move. I mentioned that. Okay, knight takes d5. So I can't take back right away because he's got an immediate mate threat on the f2 square. So I decided, it looks like castling was a move, but queen f3 is also a move here. I decided to bring my queen out to defend. Sometimes it helps to get your pieces out actively to counteract these attacks. After castling, though, I mean, that brings the rook into the game too. Castling is a good move there too. And he hopped in with knight f4. So the winning line here, one winning line, is to play queen takes f3. It's interesting that he can win by trading, because I thought I was up a bit of material here. And knight to d4. Yeah, now he's hopped into this d4 square, which I hadn't protected with c3, and he's got this check that's going to pick up material. King d1 to defend that, and knight to f6. So maybe the point is this knight is trapped, and it's never getting out. And if we count the material, I have 2 rooks and 2 pieces, and he has 1 rook and 4 pieces. So if I don't ever save this knight, then he's got 2 pieces for a rook, and also well, so that's probably good enough. So he could actually just cash out here with queen takes f3. And the other idea is to just bring this knight back and save it, and my knight is trapped here. Okay, so he kept coming forward with the knight, knight to f4, and now I play the move c3 here, defending against that invasion of the second knight. So I get the idea, I just played a little too late. And he plays h5 here, so g5 would keep up the pressure. h5 is actually the losing move in this game. And I spotted this tactic. I didn't play it right here, but actually I could have played it right here. There's this threat of knight to g6 check, forking the queen and king after he moves the h-pawn. And this knight is guarding this square, so I can take the knight. And if he takes back with the pawn, then I have the check. And if he takes back with the queen, and the queen is still on a forking square, so I still have that check. So I could have taken the knight right here. I didn't quite analyze that correctly. I played g3 to set up this tactic, allowing him to play. Well, he could escape now with knight to d3 check. Get out of trouble that way. Knight d3 check, queen takes d3, and then the queen comes in on f2, and looks like that's a good game for black. Anyway, he keeps developing more pieces and attacking, but he's overlooking this tactic, and now I can grab on f4. So at this point, I guess that was actually the final losing move, was this when he played bishop to g5 instead of knight d3 check. So he still had winning chances here. He's still better here, actually. But after bishop g4, now I play the tactic, and I'm better from this point on, although it's still a bit tricky. He goes here, and I check. King d7, and I take, and he brings the rook over. So what's the material balance? I have 2 rooks and 2 pieces, and he has 1 rook and 3 pieces. So I'm up the exchange, and the pawns, I have 4 against 3 over here. So I have a pawn plus the exchange. Should be good, but well, you can see my forces are completely undeveloped. Every one of my pieces is still on the back rank, so it does take some careful play. But fortunately for me, I have this move d4 to shut out his dark squared bishop and gain a tempo. And let's see, he takes on g3 first, and I take back, and then he sacrifices on d4. That's interesting. Yeah, the engine is suggesting also a sacrifice on d4. Why not just retreat the bishop? Okay, there's no immediate punishment, I guess, but he's in trouble regardless. So anyway, he sacrificed his knight on d4, and wanted to get his 2 bishops into the game. And he does have a rook and 2 bishops, and so I'm a whole rook up at this point, but I still have to unwind here. I start with knight c3, and he goes bishop f2 check, and I gradually walk my king to safety. So let's go through this. I can attack my rook, and I think there's no big mistakes here. I managed to just kind of hold on to things. He keeps harassing my rook, but cancel that. But I can always find a safe square for it. Bishop back to f3 might have been an interesting try here, and knight e2 to save the rook and get the knight blocking that diagonal. So that would be best play here. He went bishop d4, taking a look at the knight, go king c2, and rook f2 check, invading with his rook. Let's see, I walked over to b3. Looks like king to d3 would have been more accurate, hitting that bishop. And now, yeah, I was expecting him to take the knight. He needs to take the knight and then grab this pawn and play on from there. It's still winning for this is still winning for white, but that's best play here. He played c5, and I get my other bishop out, and then he went for bishop takes e4, and he really needed to take the knight first. So from this point on, I'm just up. I've got my pieces out, and I am, let's see, how much material am I up? After I take the bishop, I am up a rook and a piece. Yeah, that's right. I have 2 rooks and 2 pieces. He has 1 rook and 1 piece. And he has some pawns here. He has 2 extra pawns, but it's not enough. So I'm just going to go through the rest of the game kind of quickly. I don't think there were any other big turning points. He just kind of played it, kept the game going. And you know, there's always some chance that I could make some mistake, so not a bad way to play. Also, he got his passed pawns. His 2 extra pawns have turned into passed pawns. And I end up sacrificing a piece to stop one of those pawns. And that's interesting. So the chess engine thinks I didn't even have to do that. It says I could play knight e4 here. Well, that's true. You know, this pawn is stopped by the rook at this point. So knight e4, hitting his rook, and I'm going to round up this pawn with my knight, and I stopped that pawn with my rook. So I didn't really have to give up the bishop here. But anyway, This is getting to be kind of a long game, and I was trying to simplify to a position I was pretty sure was winning. So with an extra knight in this endgame, he harasses my king with some checks, but eventually I pick up the pawns here. And then finally, the last stage is to give up the knight in exchange for this last pawn. And so now I've got an endgame with 2 extra pawns. Just a simple rook and pawn endgame with extra pawns. So he finally resigned at this point, not too soon. But anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.